Senator, I want to ask you one more question before we let you go. Civility in the Senate. Senator McCain talked a lot about that, especially when he rendered that vote for Obamacare and the Health Care Act. And he talked a lot about civility. Without him there, and your decision to step away as well, can we return to civility in the U.S. Senate without John McCain?
Well, it's a lot tougher. He's been the conscience of the Senate in that regard, and all the incentives, just don't reward politicians to take action like John McCain took. So it's going to be more difficult, but in the end, we're going to have to find a way. Anger and resentment are not a governing philosophy, and we have to govern. And I hope and I'm confident that at some point voters will again reward those who value governing and decency. So I'm hopeful, as was John McCain. I just submitted a piece that will be online shortly about the time that we spent a few months ago sitting down on the deck watching Oak Creek dribble by, and John talking about leaders in Arizona that he had admired in the past and where we might go in the future. And he was optimistic that leaders will rise up.
What will you most miss about John McCain, Jerry? Because I know you had a close relationship with him.
Well, you just said it. The relationship that goes back many, many years that transcends the world of sports. He was a friend. He was a great leader. He was someone that we all depended on.
Well, one of my favorite stories about John McCain in that first campaign was somebody accused him of being basically a carpetbagger. And
right.
He says something to the effect like, hey, man, the longest place I've ever lived was in Hanoi, as a prisoner of war. Senator Mike Gonzalez here with 12 News on the desk with Bram. Politics aside, what will you most miss about Senator McCain?
Oh, his friendship. He was, not just a wonderful statesman and towering figure in the Senate, but he was a true and good friend. And I'll miss campaigning with him and traveling around the state and hearing his jokes and wisecracks. And it was just a privilege of a lifetime to have known him and to have been the other senator from Arizona.
Let's talk about his political legacy. I've been asking a lot of folks that. What in your mind really sticks out about his policies? Because, he was able to cross party lines at times. He fought his own party sometimes. And,
right.
It seems as if whether you were a Democrat, Republican, Tea Party, you respected John McCain for where he stood.
And that's exactly right. I think his legacy is country before party. And to serve a cause greater than your self-interest. He wrote about that passionately, and he lived it, and that was his example. You have the example during the campaign that people are familiar with where somebody was denigrating, one of his own supporters, denigrating his opponent, Barack Obama.
Right.
And he stood in President Obama's defense. And that's just something that true statesmen do, and he didn't hesitate. That was him. Also, during that campaign, we had a financial meltdown when the country needed to take specific action that was painful politically, especially for a limited government conservative like John McCain. But he put that aside, went to Washington, and rallied his own party members to support a package that was needed at that time, and he put his campaign and his party on hold and said, "This is what I need to do for the country," and that typifies his entire life.
Well, honoring Senator John McCain's life continues this morning. 38 years ago, John McCain arriving in Arizona, yearning for a new start. The distinguished senator, 5 times re-elected, has taken his last flight from Arizona, leaving behind an undeniable legacy. In his own way, on his own terms, John McCain has made his final journey to the East Coast. Today, the country will have a chance to say goodbye. The senator's body is in a funeral home in the D.C. area, arriving last night. After landing in the nation's capital, McCain's casket, draped in the Stars and Stripes, was taken off the plane and loaded into a hearse. For McCain's family, the grief is raw, as you can imagine. His wife of nearly 40 years, Cindy, holding strong but welcoming the comforting grace of many, including Arizona Senator Jeff Flake. And his daughter Megan openly weeping at the sight of her father being gently escorted by military honor guard troops from every single branch. All of that coming after a motorcade through the streets of Phoenix, drawing crowds in the thousands, all lining the streets to honor their Senator John McCain along an 8-mile route from the Arizona State Capitol to North Phoenix Baptist Church, where McCain's younger children were baptized. Inside, more than 3,500 mourners, including friends, family, politicians, and members of the public, filled the seats to pay tribute to a true American patriot. Senator John McCain made his final journey to Washington Thursday, his flag-draped casket arriving last night. Today, Congress and the public will pay their final respects. Team 12's Tracy Potts is following today's memorials from Washington.
NBC News, Washington.
Thank you. One of John McCain's closest friends, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, who's a Republican, is speaking out about the way President Trump has handled McCain's passing. Graham saying he found the president's behavior, quote, disturbing. The president didn't follow protocol when he refused to immediately put out a proclamation honoring Senator McCain. And for half the day on Monday, flags were not at half-staff. The president did acknowledge McCain's passing by tweeting condolences to the family when Senator McCain died on Saturday. The senator, who at times and over the years frustrated some in his very own party, also made some genuine attempts to bring Democrats and Republicans together. As he made his final journey to the nation's capital from his home in Phoenix, emotions ran high. McCain's final flight left Sky Harbor on a plane typically reserved for the vice president. Team 12's Bram Resnick is in D.C. with more on what's to come. Bram.
As Bram Resnick, 12 News.
Bram, thanks a lot. Of course, Team 12 will be there to bring you the ongoing coverage of the late senator's national send-off with crews on the ground in Washington, D.C. Stay with 12news.com, our app, and our social media platforms for the very latest.